Hey everybody, this is Sean from Low Code Approach. Before we hop in today's episode, I want to let you know that we are collecting everyone's thoughts on what topics we should cover for the upcoming season. To submit them, hopefully you're not driving. If you are, wait until you get somewhere safe, but go to aka.ms/low code topic request. That's all one word, aka.ms/low code topic request. From there, enter what topics you'd like us to cover in the upcoming season. And who knows, maybe we'll be able to get to them and get to the best people at Microsoft to talk to. Anyway, thanks for listening. We're excited to get your thoughts. Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Low Code Approach. I'm Sean Feeney, a Senior Product Marketing Manager on the Power Platform team. Now, typically, this is when I'd pass it over to Wendy, who would do her introduction, but we just finished Thanksgiving at the time of this recording, and she sent me a text earlier this morning that said, "Turkey bacon, ? Gotta go." So I don't know when we're going to hear from her again, but it sounds like she's got big plans on the way.
Another bacon emergency.
Oh yeah, another bacon emergency, but this time it's like a breakthrough. So this time we are joined by
Jocelyn, your mean, mini, angry general of security. I'm Jocelyn, everybody, Products Manager of Power Platform and Dataverse Security. And I'm also here with Ken.
Hi, my name is Ken Aguilar, Principal Program Manager. As everyone knows, I'm just one of the hosts here of the Low Code Approach. And with us today is someone whose last name is a main character in, I think, Pacific Rim. Sean, who is that with us today?
Oh, wow. The puns are just, I don't even watch that. I didn't even know. We are joined by Richard Riley, GM Product Marketing over on the Power Platform side. Richard, how you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you all doing?
Very, very well. Thank you. Jocelyn, over to you.
Thank you so much. So, Richard, I really wanted to pick your brain. We're right off of Ignite, and obviously all of the key topics are AI this, AI that. And we have these two big things. We have Copilot and we have agents. Can you explain to me which is which and how should I imagine them differently?
Yes, let me have a go at that. AI is everything. So the way to think about that is Copilot or M365 Copilot is your personal assistant. It's your personal AI assistant. It knows you, it knows your work, it knows your email, it knows your team's conversations, it knows your OneDrive content. It works kind of beside and for you. Think of there being as many Copilots in the world as there are humans, right? It's kind of a one-to-one thing. Think of agents as things that run business processes. So they work on or behalf of a human, a team, an organization, but there are as many agents as there are business processes, which could be hundreds, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions eventually. I suspect agents will become, at least in a commercial sense, as ubiquitous as apps. Now, ultimately, what we want to happen is for Copilot plus agents to have some special source in the middle. So Copilot's capable of doing things like discovering the right agents you need at the right time, of invoking those agents at the right time, of managing those agents, of personalizing your interaction with those agents, of notifying you if those agents need anything. So it becomes kind of that central gravity for agents to work with you and Copilot being the thing that sits in the middle. Does that help?
It does help. So question, it sounds like you're almost implying that they play very specific roles even within Copilot, but I'm also curious, role-wise, are there any particular roles within an organization that would maybe get the most benefit out of creating agents? Or is this, I must be a professional, an IT professional to use this? Or can anyone use these, Richard?
Yes, that's a good question, Ken. And I think it's a two-part answer. So there is what roles can create agents? Like who would we empower to be able to create agents and how? And the answer to that is it's very similar to low code. We can empower everybody from end user all the way through to a pro developer to go create agents. We have tools for every step of that way. So if you are an end user and you use an M365 Copilot and you have BizChat, we have this thing called Agent Builder that exists in BizChat. It's really easy to get going. A few clicks and you've got an agent built and you're able to share that with other people. And if you want to, you can continue to modify it and extend it in Copilot Studio, or you could just start directly in Copilot Studio if you want. And with Copilot Studio, you get access to the kind of full set capabilities in there, all of the connectors that we all know about, all of the autonomous capabilities, like a whole suite of features in Copilot Studio to build really robust and complex agents. And then if you want to take it a step further than that, you can start to connect Copilot Studio to a set of Azure services. You can call, Azure AI Search. You can use Azure AI models. There are a bunch of places where you can extend Copilot Studio to Azure as well. So kind of full end-to-end thing. Again, very similar to what we do in Power Apps, to tell you the truth. The pattern is one that we're very familiar with. And then I think the second part of that question was like, where are agents applicable? And the answer to that is they're everywhere. It's like saying, where are apps applicable? Like wherever you've got a business need to automate something, highly likely you're going to be able to apply some kind of agent technology to it. And Justin, it looks like you might have a question.
No, actually, I'm going to steal the mic from Jocelyn on this one. And so I'm probably opening mouth and insert foot when I say this, but we say Copilot a lot. And that seems to be a marketing problem where we don't provide the clarity on like what Copilot is what and what does that Copilot actually do. And so as I start updating my resume, because I'm asking my GM about this question, can you please provide some clarity on like what do we actually mean by Copilots? What are they the same thing as we talk about them across an organization and as they're using M365 Copilot or Copilot Studio? Like, what's the difference?
I think Sean's forgotten what discipline he works in for a second there. So, like, I think, yes, we've been on a bit of a journey with it. And I think it's fair if people say, like, I'm confused. I think over the last couple of months, we've got to a lot cleaner place where Copilot, M365 Copilot is your personal assistant. It's your AI assistant that you manage. It knows you best. And then anything else you build is an agent, period. And I think that does help clarify and create a little bit more of a bright line between the two things.
That makes total sense. Now, let's go to this other question that I'd like to get into. And I think a lot of people gain a lot of benefit, especially on other podcasts where we've talked about new technologies, is use cases. And as customers are now adopting Copilot, it seems to be kind of a blank canvas in how they build their agents and then how complex their agents can become. Are you seeing in your conversations any industries that are getting the most benefit out of incorporating agents into their processes?
That's a fairly easy one. I think the answer is any industry that has some kind of business process attached to it can get value from an AI agent. It really is tied to the business processes that customers run. Now, there's a set of vertical processes that pretty much every single business runs. Like there are HR processes that are familiar across every business. There are sales processes. There are finance processes. There are IT processes. There's a bunch there where you'll see us ship, kind of templates or starter kits or things that can get customers going quickly, or even pre-built agents that you just configure. You don't have to go build them. But the real magic here comes when you start looking at the business processes that are currently manual or partly automated with technology, where you could apply an agent over the top of it and add a ton of value to it. You could enhance the efficiency and just make it a whole heap better. And then there are a whole set of business processes that exist today that have historically been just unautomatable. They are non-deterministic. They're very complicated. They take a different path every time. And that's where agents that have these autonomous capabilities really, really shine. So I think we'll see customers start in places that are familiar. Like there is already some level of automation there. They'll apply AI agents to that automation to make it better. And then they'll move and they'll realize once they kind of understand the art of the possible and the scope of what you can do, we'll start to figure out that there are a whole heap of other things that they can go automate that historically just wouldn't have been touched with technology because it was too hard. And that's where honestly the most value will come, I believe. Like, so I think when people start to look into that area, it will really it'll spark that creativity and scope of what you can do with agents. And honestly, I think that's where customers are going to see the most value from this technology.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think luckily we've got the agent library that was announced at Ignite 2 to help with that first step if you are trying to come across what is possible as you delve deeper into that.
So we talked a lot about current state. We know what we have. We know how customizable it is. Tell me, what's on your mind with regards to what's next?
I would say from a product perspective, from a Copilot Studio product perspective, I would say our ability and our integration with Azure is something that we're just going to make stronger and stronger and stronger. I'd love to make Copilot Studio as much of a choice for a pro developer as VS Code is or Visual Studio is today. There's a ton coming there. I'm excited about how we can make that integration much stronger. And then I would say from a use case perspective, I think we are early on the journey of what autonomous agents can do in terms of being able to teach them, memory, reasoning, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, as models evolve, these things will naturally get better. But I also think there's a ton of value we can add there and new capabilities we can add that really take what we already can do with on the autonomous side to the next level. And then the third thing I'd say, the analytics, the security and governance side is one that we're going to continue to invest in. Like we have a strong heritage there with Copilot Studio because it was born from PVA, as I'm sure everybody knows. So it carries through a lot of the security, governance, compliance capabilities that exist. existed in PVA, but we're going to continue to invest there. Hopefully give people a single pane of glass or a much simpler view across their kind of agent portfolio. So we're not having to go to a bunch of different places, the Microsoft Admin Center, the PPAC, and a bunch of other places to figure out, what's happening. And probably Ken and Sean and Jocelyn, you know way more about that than me. So you could probably add a little bit about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So +1 on all of the PPAC stuff. But if I just go backwards for a second, I really want to say I resonate with what you're saying with regards to MCS being the solution, not just for low code, no code, but also for pro code. I feel like that's definitely a shift that I've seen our org taking in the last year or so. And I always think about how Sean's LinkedIn doesn't just say low code, no code, but it actually says -pro code on it as well. Because at first with Biz Apps, we were the ones who were going to empower people to be able to develop these solutions, even if you're not a developer yourself. But nowadays, we're business and industry co-pilots. We're empowering you to do your best, no matter where you fall on that spectrum.
That's right.
So I love that.
That's right.
Yeah. Over to you now, Ken.
Richard, you said Azure and what you see on the horizon for us, but let's talk about currently. Let's talk about right now and extensibility and integration. This is one of the questions, we just came fresh off of Ignite, and I remember being at the booth specifically for Copilot, and folks asking me, can I connect this to ServiceNow? Can I connect this to a number of different other things, right? An internal SQL database. They were asking so many different questions about connectivity and extensibility. How extensible is, say, Copilot Studio versus other parts of the Copilot stack? Like Sean said, we say Copilot a lot.
I think Copilot Studio is the extensibility path for M365 Copilot, right? So I think if you're gonna look to extend M365 Copilot today, at least, it's the fastest and easiest way to get there. In terms of its extensibility capability, I think you're asking around how well connected is it? How many data sources can I use? And that just comes straight back to it's the same as Power Apps. It uses the same set of connectors. So if one exists in the connector library, knock yourself out. If one doesn't, you can go build one. I'm sure I don't need to explain to you three guys that app to explain it.
No, we don't need to get into how to build a custom connector.
That was quite literally my old job.
There you go. Which is why I won't even begin to try and do it. But it uses the same connectivity framework, which is essentially, infinite. You can connect to anything the heck you want. And then our hooks into Azure, while today I would say we're on the beginning of that journey, they will only just make that even easier, because you may be able to achieve what you need to achieve in terms of getting data into an agent without a connector. You may be able to just pull it in directly through Azure as we start to expand the ways that Copilot Studio and Azure work together.
So I'm a newbie, imagine that. And I hear the word generative agent. How am I supposed to think of that? How would you define that versus, say, someone who might say, oh, I've built a simple bot? Are they one and the same? Is a generative agent different? What's the difference? Or are they the same?
Yeah, it's the generative agent. And this is one where, lots of people use the same word slightly differently. The difference between a bot and a generative agent to me is a bot is old school. PVA used to build bots. It was topics based. It was very deterministic. You if you didn't know the answer, you got and I'm not sure, please talk to a human or ask the question, right? For me, I don't want to ever build another bot because bots are old, right? I want to be building a Gen AI bot or an agent. And the difference between the two is one leverages AI capabilities in some form or fashion, and one doesn't. One is one is completely deterministic. One can be deterministic plus it could use AI, or it could be completely AI. All right, so I think that the bridge there for me is whether it uses AI or not.
We've done a good job of kind of defining what copilots are, what agents are, use cases in organizations. I think while we still have you on the line, Richard, I'd like to get your approach to growth and adoption of agents within organizations. I know you hit the road and you're talking at the Azure AI tours and how Power Platform works with AI and agents are in there. How do you see organizations grow adoption of agent usage within and build champions, especially as you're now incorporating, automation and embedded into Power Apps, right? How do you get everybody on the same page and explode in innovation when using agents?
So it's really interesting. I would say there's a lot of similarities between what we've seen with low code, with Power Apps and Power Automate. And it's probably because the tooling kind of maps quite neatly as well. But there's definitely the kind of grassroots effort where you've got people that have just been given access to the technology and they will go build and create stuff. They're technically adept, they know how to use formulas in Excel or, pivot tables and maybe use a bit of VBA, and picking up something like Copilot Studio is not a stretch. So we see some of the grassroots stuff. We see a bunch of IT similarly picking this up and figuring it out, essentially how they can solve IT problems, primarily because they are more predisposed to understand the technology in the first place because they're in IT, which is similar patterns to what we saw with a bunch of the Power products. The interesting thing I would say on the adoption side is I haven't seen a whole heap of middle ground yet. There has been a bunch of customers which have been very much on the like, heck no, we're switching this stuff off. We're going to wait and see and do a bunch of work to figure out like how we turn it on slowly. And then there's been a bunch of customers which are just like, no, we're out, we're all in, like go. They've turned everything on. They've enabled Agent Builder, and there's just a lot going on. I haven't seen a bunch of stuff in the middle. I'm sure that will come, but it probably does map quite neatly if we think back to what we did with Power Platform in the first place, actually, with those. And then, you get the fast follow of all of the governance and security and compliance and how does all this stuff work from IT, and the COEs spring up. We're starting to see a little bit of that work as well about how can we create kind of champions within an organization to figure out use cases and champion the technology within various business units. The one thing that I would say I've found has been significantly different to the patterns we saw with Power is I've had a bunch more business conversations with senior business leaders that are incredibly interested in agents because of the impact that they think that it's going to have and it can have on their top line and their bottom line, right? I literally got off the call with a customer half an hour ago who are looking to save money and make money, and they want to do it with agents. And this is a C-level conversation. At this point in time, and when we have those with Power Platform today, but at this point in time, for the maturity of the level of time that this technology has been in the market, that feels very, very different. And so I think people really are kind of clicking onto the, like, this technology can really make me money and it can really save me money. And it'll be interesting to see how those two play out over the coming months.
So, Richard, there's been a lot of buzz and whatnot inside of the market today and talking about agents and how agents can save money. How exactly are we different than everyone else?
I think there's lots of opinions on this and lots of people with very vocal opinions that have large social media following. So it's interesting to see it play out. I would say, like, we have the access to the system of record data and the unstructured graph data. And I think for an agent to operate effectively, grounding itself in your CRM system or your service system or whatever the system of record is, plus understanding that unstructured kind of contextual knowledge that it gets from something like graph is massively differentiating and incredibly powerful for an organization when they're building these agents. I don't know of another company that's got the level of depth of domain knowledge and tacit knowledge in something like graph, plus the ability to very easily connect to your system of record. It could be a Microsoft first-party thing, or it could be a third-party thing. I think it's only us, And I think from the customers that I'm talking to, they're seeing the value in bringing those two things together in a really meaningful way.
So then, looking across the market, not just necessarily for Microsoft, but for AI as a whole, what do you think are our next big challenges that we're going to have to face?
Yeah. So maybe actually, let me switch your challenge into an opportunity. From the conversations I've had with customers, helping people understand the value that AI and agents can bring has not been a difficult one. I think what comes next is the most important thing, which is like, how do we empower them to be able to go deploy these things at scale in a very secure, managed, compliant way, that they can manage these things, they've got insight into all of it. So I think it's beholden on us to make sure that we do all of the right things there, to build on the foundations that we've got, and that you three keep helping everybody understand like how you can deploy these things at scale and how you can manage them securely. We have a ton of really good capabilities in market today. We just need to make sure everyone understands where they are and how they work. And we will ultimately need to do a better job of bringing them together so that there's a more coherent way for people to interact with them.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Richard. It's funny, for the entirety of calendar year 2024, our secret word was Copilot, then it morphed into agents. And I think you hit on it. Managed is going to be our FY20 or our calendar year 25 magic word that we're going to say everywhere. So thank you again for joining us and bringing the clarity to agents and copilots that we really need. And just be aware, we're going to clip almost everything that you said and put it into YouTube Shorts and make sure that everybody is aware all over LinkedIn about all these things.
That's good, man. Feel free.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Have a good day. See ya.